This is Marvel Rivals. Heard of it? Probably. It's kind of the hottest hero shooter on the market right now. And for good reason, too. This game is a fascinating mix-up of the genre. Between the dynamic and fun heroes and villains that everyone knows and loves, to the amazingly implemented team-up mechanic, this game has it all. I'm here to get you started on your journey to be a hero. So let's get started with the basics. That is what I'm here for, after all. And we've got a lot to cover here. So suit up, and welcome to Rivals Kindergarten. Alright, this week we're going to be tackling the dive comp. And holy shit, if I may break character here for like just a few seconds. I fucking hate dive in this game. 80% of the dive heroes are so horribly unfun, which sucks because I really like dive in Overwatch, but Christ, collecting this footage was unfucking bearable. It also doesn't help that in quick play, some of the most popular fucking heroes are dive, so I ended up having to go into bot matches to get some footage because I couldn't fucking do it otherwise. It is what it is. But let's get serious again. That was all unscripted, and I just need to get it off my chest because holy shit, dude. Anyway. What does dive mean exactly? I explained it in Lesson 0, but I'm sure not all of you watched that, so I'll elaborate here. Dive, or the flank comp, consists of high mobility heroes. Each of them have several ways to engage, get a pick, or kill, and then disengage with little to no risk to themselves. That said, they are very susceptible to crowd control due to their reliance on being mobile. Dive is traditionally very weak to brawl comps, as brawl heroes usually have the most peel and crowd control paired with high damage. Yeah, so without further ado, let's get down to business. I will be starting with the vanguards and then moving to duelists and finally wrapping it up with strategists. If any of you have seen my previous kindergartens, then you'll know the drill here. I'm going to go over each character and talk about their abilities in a slight in-depth manner, then give some tips that I've either learned the hard way or developed on my own. Also, don't take my advice as gospel, please. Everyone has their own playstyle, and as I've said before, what works for me might not work for you. Take what I say as a jumping off point and figure out your own thing from there. Oh, and my normal disclaimer, this is all accurate information as of Season 1.5. So, let's do this. Cap is our first dive hero, and I have him placed here because, frankly, it's the best spot for him. Like, yes, he works in Brawl very well, but his entire playstyle relies on him being a general nuisance in the enemy backlines and then getting out. If that doesn't scream dive hero, I don't really know what does. He has a base HP of 675, and his primary fire is called Sentinel Strike. He punches an enemy with his fists, the melee strikes doing 40 damage, but after 2 hits he will begin to toss his shield up to 25 meters away, dealing 45 damage for the next 4 attacks. His alternate fire is Living Legend, and it's his iconic Vibranium shield. He lifts it up and a holographic projection appears in front of it. The projection has an HP of 400. Additionally, when someone targets the shield with a projectile, the projectile deflects back to them, dealing 50% less damage. This ability has a 1-second cooldown. On top of that, the shield recovers 50 HP per second when not actively being used. His movement ability is called Leading Dash, and he gains a 33.4% movement speed boost and can jump 5 meters in the air. This ability has no cooldown. One of his other abilities is called Vibranium Energy Saw, and he throws his shield. It travels up to 25 meters and upon impact does 70 damage, then can ricochet up to 3 times, dealing 20% reduced damage for each enemy it hits. It has a cooldown of 8 seconds. Another ability is called Liberty Rush, and he raises his shield and dashes forward 12 meters, dealing 30 damage to an enemy if he hits them. It has a 10-second cooldown. His final ability is called Super Soldier Slam, and while airborne and pressing the primary fire button, he slams down into the ground at the targeted area, dealing 30 damage and knocking all enemies hit by it up in the air. It has a cooldown of 12 seconds. And last, but certainly not least, is his ultimate ability, Freedom Charge. Upon casting, he gains 150 bonus health, and all allies within 4 meters gain 100 bonus health. Additionally, a trail follows him that rapidly decays. For the entire 10-second duration, Cap gains 100 bonus health and a 30% movement speed boost. Meanwhile, any ally standing in the trail gains 60 bonus health and a 30% movement speed boost as well. Lastly, if you run into an enemy with your shield raised or use Liberty Rush, it knocks them up and backwards. This ability costs 2,800 energy. Like I said earlier, Cap is best played in the enemy backlines harassing the supports, even if he doesn't get a kill, and he probably won't. Just the pure annoyance of him existing will put pressure on the enemies and make them turn or peel. Lastly, his ultimate is an amazing brawling tool. Use it like you would a support ult and you'll get a lot of value from it. Of course, using it selfishly is still valid, but you get your best value by leading the charge with it or saving your teammates, just like Captain America himself would. Up next is the OG symbiote, the lethal protector himself, Venom. I feel like I don't really need to explain why Venom is in Dive. His playstyle is pretty self-explanatory: swing in, get some picks, get out. He plays strangely similar to Wrecking Ball from Overwatch. Obviously it's not a one-to-one comparison, but there are quite a few similarities. He has a base HP of 650, and his primary fire is called Dark Predation, which are 4 tendrils that shoot out from his body and have a ludicrously long range of 15 meters. Each tentacle deals 20 damage, and can crit. His secondary fire is called Cellular Corrosion. All enemies within an 8-meter radius are attached to Venom via tendrils, dealing an initial 5 damage and applying a 15% slow. If they stay within 11 meters of Venom for the entire 3-second duration, they take an additional 80 damage. It has a cooldown of 8 seconds. Venom Swing is his primary movement ability, and it pairs very well with another ability called Frenzied Arrival. Venom Swing is pretty obvious what he does. His webs latch onto a surface within 30 meters, and he can swing. It has an 8-second cooldown. Frenzied Arrival, on the other hand, is a bit different. Now, it doesn't necessarily require the web swing, you just have to be at least 3 meters off the ground and at most 40, but obviously the best time for that is when you're web swinging. But basically, you slam down into the ground, pulling enemies near the impact zone towards you and dealing 65 damage. It has a cooldown of 8 seconds. His last ability is called Symbiotic Resilience, and when casting, you gain instantly 100 bonus health, as well as converting 120% of your lost HP into more bonus health. It has a 15-second cooldown. Before I can get to his ult, it should be noted that as a spider person, he can wall climb and stick to walls. His ultimate, though, is called Feast of the Abyss, and he buries himself underground and gains an 80% movement speed buff for 4 seconds, after which a giant toothy maw jumps out of the ground and takes a bite out of any enemy within a 7-meter radius. It deals an initial 50 damage, plus 50% of the remaining HP of the affected enemies. 100% of all damage dealt is converted into bonus health, and it costs 2,500 energy. Venom is very good at harassing the backline. He functions like Cap, just a bit more squirrely and with slightly more lethality. The trade-off with Venom, because of all his resources are on cooldown, is you want to be making sure you're making effective use of your cooldowns. Don't swing into a fight without your ult fire or your overheal, because that's almost a guaranteed death in that scenario. The Wakandan King, T'Challa, otherwise known as Black Panther, is one of the hardest characters to play in the entire game, and I am not immune to this fact. As such, I will not be giving any advice for him, I will just be telling you what he does. I feel it would be disingenuous if I tried to act like an expert when I'm barely proficient at the hero in general. I'm almost positive he is still my least played hero, or among them, and I've been playing this game since its release. Anyway, he has a base HP of 300, and I haven't been mentioning this before now because it's never been relevant, but his movement speed is 7 meters per second, which is faster than the base 6 per second. His primary fire is called Vibranium Claws, and he swings his claws around, dealing 35 damage to enemies within 3 meters. His alternate fire is called Spear Toss, and it's pretty obvious what it does, but he throws a spear that deals 45 damage and explodes in a 5-meter spherical radius. Any enemy within that radius is considered marked. It has 2 charges, and each has a cooldown of 6 seconds. His next ability is called Spinning Kick, and he performs a spinning kick. Shocker, I know. It deals 70 damage to anyone within a 16-meter line, additionally applying a mark. It has a cooldown of 8 seconds. His final ability is called Spirit Rend, and he dashes forward, slashing with his claws, dealing 80 damage to enemies in a 15-meter line. Additionally, If you hit a marked enemy, you gain 30 bonus health to a max of 75, and instantly refresh the cooldown of the ability. The cooldown is 8 seconds. He has two passives, the first being called Subtle Step. He can run up walls and then double jump off of them. It has a 3-second cooldown. His second passive is called Panther's Cunning. When falling to or below 100 HP, he gains a 20% damage boost. And finally, his ultimate ability, Bast's Descent. He summons a spectral image of Bast and pounces on enemies, dealing 150 damage and applying a mark on all affected enemies. Additionally, it refreshes the cooldown of Spirit Rend. It costs 3,300 energy. I am horrible at this character, so like I said, I will not give you advice. If you are interested, I suggest looking at guides and just also get used to, getting absolutely shit on. A lot. Because a bad Black Panther is basically useless, but only through playtime will you actually improve at the hero. So don't let it demoralize you that you're not doing amazing at the beginning. He is a very, very hard character to play. Now, this one might be a bit of a confusing choice to put in the dive category, but I'm placing Human Torch here due to a couple things: his quick movement and his hyper-mobile kill confirmer. He meshes very well with Poke and Brawl, much like the other flyer, Iron Man, but I think he belongs in dive. Disagree if you'd like to, though. Johnny has a base HP of 250, and his primary fire is called Fire Cluster, which is a long-range shotgun-type projectile. It deals 7 damage per round and has 3 rounds per shot. It does not have a traditional ammo capacity. Instead, it has 6 charges that have a refresh rate of 0.33 seconds. His alternate fire is called Blazing Blast, and he throws a fireball at the ground that expands into a flame field, which covers a 3-meter radius. It does an initial 40 impact damage, but continues to do damage over time if the enemies remain in the field, dealing 25 damage per second. It lasts for 6 seconds. This ability has 3 charges and has a cooldown of 2 seconds per charge. Before I move on to his movement ability, I'd like to talk about Pyro Prison, because it pairs with Blazing Blast. Upon cast, all flame fields within 40 meters of each other are linked by a 2-meter high wall of flame. These walls deal an initial 65 damage and a continuous 50 damage per second for the entire 5-second duration. It has a cooldown of 15 seconds. His movement ability is called Plasma Body, and upon activation, he gains more control in the air as well as 50% movement speed boost. It runs on a resource meter that has a maximum of 120, and consumes 15 energy per second, and recovers 20 per second while not in use. The maximum cooldown is 6 seconds. Up next is Flaming Meteor. He slams into the ground and all enemies within 5 meters take 40 damage. Additionally, any flame fields within 3 meters instantly detonate and activate Pyro Prison. It has a cooldown of 12 seconds. Lastly is his ultimate, Supernova. Upon activation, he detonates in a 20-meter spherical radius, dealing 70 damage. For the whole 8-second duration, he can activate Plasma Body without consuming the resource meter and has a 30% damage reduction. Additionally, his alternate fire does not place flame fields. It instead places flaming tornadoes that cover a massive 6-meter wide by 8-meter tall area. The tornadoes deal 100 damage per second, and it costs 3,400 energy. Human Torch is a sustain-type dive hero. He keeps consistent damage going and then hurls himself in for the kill. Do not be afraid to play aggressive, but as Human Torch, you're gonna want to be pretty high up in the air. Just make sure you're always in line of sight of your supports. The Immortal Protector of Kunlun, Iron Fist. He is a hyper-mobile, aggressive dive hero who also functions very well as a tank buster. But holy Jesus, this guy has a lot going on. I didn't realize it until I started writing the script, but each of his abilities does like 3 separate things. You'll see what I mean. He has a base HP of 300 and his primary fire is called Jeet Kune Do, and it works a little strangely. He punches a lot, but the first, second, and fifth punch deal 30 damage, the third and fourth deal 15, but the sixth hit deals 50. See what I'm saying? His alternate fire is called Dragon's Defense, and for 1.5 seconds you convert all incoming damage to bonus health, up to 200. After the 1.5 second block time, you then amplify your primary fire to Yaji Shengquen, which lasts for 5 seconds. During the duration, you deal 10 damage per strike plus 1.7% of the enemy's max health. Additionally, if you are up to 11 meters away from an enemy, you will dash towards them. It has a cooldown of 15 seconds. Kunlun Kick is his movement ability. He dashes 12 meters away. If you hit an enemy, you kick them twice, the first kick dealing 30 damage and the second kick dealing 35. If the target is below 50% HP though, they instead take 70 damage for the second kick. This ability has a cooldown of 12 seconds. Harmony Recovery is a self-heal. It heals Iron Fist 100 HP per second for the full duration, which is 3 seconds. If Iron Fist is full health, he instead gains up to 150 bonus health. It has a cooldown of 12 seconds. Iron Fist has a whopping 3 passive abilities. The first is called Crane Leap, which is a double jump, but that's not quite right because he has 3 charges, meaning he can jump up to 3 times while in the air. Each charge has a cooldown of 1 second, but the cooldown only starts when Iron Fist is touching the ground. His second passive is called Wall Runner. Pretty obvious what that is, moving on. His last passive is called Chi Absorption. Assisting in a kill gives him 50 bonus health. Cool. His ultimate ability is called Living Chi, and for the entire 12-second duration, he gains a 20% movement speed boost, a 30% damage boost, minus 80% off of Dragon's defense cooldown, and doubles the range of Kunlun Kick, Jeet Kune Do, and Yaji Shengquen. It costs around 3,000 energy, I think. I say around because no source I've checked actually has a concrete number, so enjoy that. He is one of the most aggressive dive heroes in the entire roster. He excels at isolating and taking down supports, as well as being very proficient at killing tanks with his amplified primary fire. But his first priority should always be supports. And don't let the amount of stuff that his abilities do fool you. He's not actually insanely difficult to play. It's just he does a lot with what little he actually does, if that makes any sense. Psylocke is one of my favorite characters in the game. I think her default character design is so awesome, and her ability design is a fun combination between Genji and Sombra, 2 of my favorite dive DPS from Overwatch. She has a base 250 health, and her primary fire is called Psionic Crossbow. It is a double projectile 2-round burst that does 12 damage per shot. To clarify, that means she shoots 4 bullets per cast. She deals 150 critical damage, 150% critical damage, and each hit with her crossbow takes 0.25 seconds off of her cooldowns. It has an ammo capacity of 16. Her secondary fire is called Wing Shurikens. She throws out 5 shurikens that deal 8 damage each. If you score a hit, you get 10 bonus health per shuriken that hit. On top of that, there is a brief 3-second window in which you can recall the throwing star. If it hits an enemy, it deals 14 damage per shuriken. It has a cooldown of 8 seconds. Her movement ability is called Psyblade Dash, and she dashes up to 12 meters, dealing 50 damage to anyone in that line. Additionally, if the wing shurikens were on the field, they are recalled to Psylocke, first returning to her initial position, and then reaching her. She has 2 charges of the dash, and it has a cooldown of 8 seconds. The next ability is called Psychic Stealth. Upon cast, she turns invisible and gains a 50% movement speed boost for the whole 3-second duration. Much like other invisibility effects, if she takes damage, she is revealed. It has a cooldown of 15 seconds. Her ultimate ability is called Dance of the Butterfly, and for the 4-second duration, any random enemy caught in the 10-meter spherical radius will be slashed for 150 damage. She slashes 8 times and typically prioritizes the person hit the least, meaning the best way to counter it is to stay grouped up. Additionally, shields and barriers and walls block the effect. It costs 2,800 energy. She is a very versatile dive hero. She can function as a frontliner and a diver, but usually gets her most value by harassing the enemy. The best advice I have for you is to try to always save stealth for engaging in fights, and save at least one dash in order to disengage. I decided to put Wanda in the dive category, but I think overall she makes for a pretty textbook brawl dive hybrid. Primarily dive though, so dive brawl. Meaning she can function in both. But primarily I would say she's a very flank heavy hero, so dive is where she goes. She has a base 250 HP, and her primary fire is called Chaos Control. It is a lock-on beam that has a range of 20 meters. It does a 6 base damage plus 0.3% of the enemy's max health. It has unlimited ammo, and every 0.1 second it reduces the cooldown of her alt fire by 0.08 seconds. Speaking of her alternate fire, Chthonian Burst is a fast-moving projectile that deals 35 impact damage and 35 splash damage in a 3-meter radius. She has 4 charges, and the base cooldown is 2.5 seconds per charge. Her movement ability is called Mystic Projection, and for 2 seconds she becomes intangible and mostly invisible save for a red orb. While intangible, she cannot be healed or hurt unless she grabs a health pack, and has 50% movement speed boosts. She has 2 charges, and each charge has a cooldown of 8 seconds. Dark Seal is another ability in her arsenal. It is a red orb that she can manually detonate or wait for the 0.8 second delay. Once detonated, it expands into a large bubble that stuns enemies caught inside it every 1.25 seconds for 0.5 seconds for the whole 4.5 second duration. So basically every 1.25 seconds they get stunned for half a second, and then that lasts for 4.5 seconds. It has a cooldown of 12 seconds. Her passive ability, Telekinesis, is a slow fall. Her ultimate ability is called Reality Erasure. It sounds way better and way cooler than it actually is. Upon cast, she gains 100 bonus health, enters free flight, and enters a 4-second charge-up phase. She slows gradually to minus 35% of her base flight speed at 3.5 seconds of charge-up time. After the 4-second charge-up, she detonates, dealing 750 damage to all enemies within a 15-meter spherical radius from her. It costs 3,400 energy. Scarlet Witch is designed to be a persistent damage diver, who constantly harasses flyers and supports. She is probably the best and easiest counter to flying heroes, especially in lower ranks, but she definitely loses a lot of her value when you get to Platinum or higher. Her ult sounds like it's a very deadly ability, and to an extent it is. But it's mainly a zoning ult, made to get people to move out of your way and not really used to get kills, due to the large time for charge up. In order to get real value out of her ult in regard to kills, you're going to need a support to pocket you or a Magneto to bubble you. Up next is the web-slinging wall crawler himself. He is another hero I'm not particularly great with, but he's easier to play than Black Panther, so there's that. He is also one of the squirrely rat bastard heroes in the entire game. He also allows for a lot of skill expression as well, so that's nice. His base HP is 250, which if you ask me, that's way too high. I think they should lower it to like 200 or something, because he's like the Tracer of Marvel Rivals. He's hard to hit, small, too squirrely, has a lot of movement and mobility. He should have a lower health pool to compensate for that. So if you catch him out of position, he just dies, kind of like Tracer. But that's besides the point. His primary fire is called Spider Power. He punches twice for 35 damage per hit and kicks once for 40 damage. And then it's just rinse repeat that 2-punch kick combo. His alternate fire is called the Web Cluster. It's a fast-moving projectile that deals 30 damage on impact and applies a spider tracer for 3 seconds. He has 5 shots, and each shot has a 2.5 second recharge period. His movement ability is called Web Swing. He attaches a web to a surface within 30 meters and does the Spider-Man thing. Like that. He has 3 charges, and each charge has a cooldown of 6 seconds. His combo ability is quite appropriately named the Amazing Combo. He uppercuts everyone in a 5-meter spherical radius from him and deals 55 damage and sends them into the air. He has 2 charges, and each charge has a 2-second cooldown. Next is Get Over Here, his hook move. He attaches a web to an enemy within 20 meters, dealing 20 damage and pulling them towards him. If they have a spider tracer on them, he launches towards them instead, striking with a kick that does 50 damage for a total of 70, because the web also does impact damage still. The range is increased to 24 meters when they are traced. It has an 8-second cooldown. Peter has 3 passive abilities. Jesus, the dive heroes are all so mechanically busy. They all have so much going on. The first is called Wall Crawl. Not elaborating, it's Spider-Man. Okay. The second is called Thwip and Flip. It's a double jump. The third one is called Spider Sense, and it kind of functions weirdly. Basically, if an enemy was somewhere nearby in the past 3 seconds, then he is alerted to that fact. I don't know why he has it, I don't know a single person that uses it, but it's there. His ultimate ability is called Spectacular Spin, and for 2.4 seconds, Spider-Man spins around in an 8-meter spherical radius. Every 0.08 seconds, enemies are hit for 12 damage. They are slowed by 3% for every hit too, and if they are hit 20 times, which is possible, they are covered in webs and stunned for 1.5 seconds. He also gains 250 bonus health. It costs 2,800 energy. Spider-Man is the epitome of dive. Get in, launch a nasty one-hit combo, and get the fuck out. He is honestly one of the most annoying characters to fight against, but that's just my opinion. Star-Lord is one of those characters for me, where it's either hit or miss. As for why I put him into dive, well, it's because he excels at quick engages and fast retreats with minimal risk. Also, his DPS is kind of insane. He has 250 base HP, and his primary fire is called Element Guns, which are dual SMGs that he blasts. They have a really fast fire rate, 40 rounds per second, and deal 6.5 damage per shot, and they have an ammo capacity of 40 rounds. His alt fire is Stellar Shift. He does a flip or a dodge in the input direction and becomes invincible for 0.37 seconds and reloads his guns. He has 2 charges, and each charge has a 5-second cooldown. His movement ability is called Rocket Propulsion, and he starts flying through the air with his rocket boots for 6 seconds, getting a 100% movement speed boost. It has an 18-second cooldown. His last ability is called Blaster Barrage, and he spins around for 3 seconds, dealing 200 damage in an 8-meter spherical area. It has a cooldown of 8 seconds. His ultimate is called Galactic Legend, and for 8 seconds he enters free flight, gains a 20% movement speed boost, 70% reload time reduction, and aimbot out to 30 meters. No big deal. It costs 3,100 energy. Star-Lord is a very strong dive hero, but he also works very well in the anti-dive due to his Blaster Barrage ability. He is best played as a mid-team diver, meaning that he excels at targeting the middle of the enemy team and disrupting them before hightailing it out of there. Jeff might seem like a strange hero to put in dive. After all, why would he be there? Well, it's quite simple really. He's a dive brawl hybrid, but he's a main diver. And the reason for that is because of his survivability and ease of getting in and out. Jeff has 250 base HP, and his primary fire is called Joyful Splash, which is a massive beam of water that heals 150 HP per second. It has 100 ammo and shoots 20 rounds per second. His secondary fire is called Aqua Burst, which is a high-speed sphere of water that detonates upon impact. The impact damage is 25, and the splash damage is 40. It has an ammo capacity of 12. His movement ability is called Hide and Seek, and he submerges himself underground where all you can see is his dorsal fin, While submerged, you cannot be CC'd, gain a 60% movement speed boost, and heal 35 HP per second. Additionally, you gain the ability to climb walls. This ability has no cooldown. Up next is Healing Bubble, a bubble that heals. It heals 85 HP and grants a 15% boost to all incoming healing, and grants a 60% movement speed buff. Both of these boosts and buffs last for 4 seconds. When a bubble is grabbed, enemies are knocked back slightly. This ability has 6 charges, and each charge has a cooldown of 6 seconds. His passive ability is called Oblivious Cuteness, and it reduces the damage that he takes from critical hits by 50%. His ultimate ability is called It's Jeff. Jeff dives deep below the ground for up to 6 seconds. After the duration is over, or if he ends it early, he comes up and swallows all players in the AoE indicator, friendly or not. The AoE is a 10-meter radius in width and 5 meters high. While players are swallowed, Jeff is in hide and seek for the 6-second duration. During that time, all allies heal for 225 HP per second, and all enemies take 25 damage per second. At any time, Jeff can spit the players out or can suicide off an edge. It costs 4,000 energy. The best advice I can give to you with Jeff is don't play him as a second support. Always make sure you have 2 other supports in order to be able to capitalize off of your abilities the best. He is a textbook 3 support hero. Also, suiciding with your ult is always the best bet if you have hypermobile heroes trapped in your jaw. Although you don't always want to suicide off the ledge if you only have 1 or 2 heroes in your jaw. Additionally, and this is pretty important, you do not count as contesting the objective while you are in hide and seek or in your ult. Lastly, don't ult the point in overtime. There's a chance you might accidentally throw the game. Hey, I know what you're thinking. Rocket? The backline support is in dive? Why? What the fuck are you smoking? Let me just get this out of the way real quick. Rocket isn't dive for quite a few reasons. One is because of his armor station being the perfect tool to reset divers who are out of position. The second reason is he's actually a very competent dive partner. Him playing forward is actually very helpful due to his damage output and healing. The third and final reason is because he's one of the only supports, if not the only one, who can heal divers from a distance and in small cramped locations. But overall, he is a dive brawl hybrid. Now if that answers all your questions, let's move on to his abilities. He has a base HP of 250, and his primary fire is called Bombard Mode. It is a fully automatic gun that does 16 damage per round with an ammo capacity of 45. He has a horribly inaccurate firing pattern and an awful spread, and a pretty unforgiving fall-off range, so you have to be basically barrel stuffing in order to get good damage. But it does shred tanks. His secondary fire, though, is called Repair Mode, and he blasts bouncing spheres that heal allies for 70 HP per second and himself for 30 HP per second. They last for 5 seconds or up to 10 bounces. When they approach an ally, they slow down. He has an ammo capacity of 8. His movement ability is called Jetpack Dash, and he quite simply uses his jetpack to dash forward 10 meters. It has 2 charges and a cooldown of 6 seconds each. His next ability is the BRB, or the Battle Rebirth Beacon. It is a station that he places down that lasts for 300 seconds or until its primary function is used. But until then, every 3 seconds, it spits out either a 25 HP armor pack or a pair of jet boots that launch you into the air. As for the primary function though, if an ally dies within 50 meters of the beacon, they will respawn at said beacon. After that, it will disappear and go on cooldown for 45 seconds. He has 2 passive abilities. The first is called Wild Crawl, and he crawls along walls. The second is called Flying Ace, which is a slow fall. His ultimate ability, on the other hand, is called the Sia, or the Cosmic Yarn Amplifier. And it's a team-wide damage boost. All allies within range of the device, which is a 20-meter radius, gain a 40% damage boost. The amp has 800 HP and can be destroyed, so be careful where you place it. It costs 3,700 energy. My best advice for a rocket, huh? Play him however you want. Quite frankly, he is very flexible. He works great as a frontline dive partner, great as a backline heal bot, great as a midline brawler. My only advice would be to only run him in 3 support comps. But otherwise, don't listen to angry people on the game who say he's a throw pick. He's literally a perfectly valid hero to play, and I'm sick of people pretending he's not. Well, that there was Dive. Like I said at the beginning of this video, feel free to leave any questions in the comment section. I will try to answer them to the best of my ability. Please try to keep it civil down there too. I know the internet is an awful hellscape, so please just don't fucking add to it. Also, as I said in lesson 0 and in the beginning of this very lesson, I am not the definitive expert on this game. If there's any placements here you don't agree with or any tips that you think won't help you, feel free to let me know. Just be fucking civil, because I'm not gonna humor you if you're a dickhead. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care if you're a dickhead. I'm just gonna fucking ignore you. Like, that's that. Lastly, as is normal, like if you liked, dislike if you didn't. I don't really care one way or another. And if you found this informative and want to see more content like this, you should subscribe, because I'm going to be doing a lot of shit like this. I kind of like this game, and I kind of like doing this, pretending I know what I'm talking about. Again, that's up to you. I don't really care if you sub or not. That's up to you. So, I'm not your dad, not your older brother, not your uncle, not your grandpa, or whatever other male authority figure you have in your life. I'm not that guy. Alright? But anyway, I think that's that. So, lesson is dismissed, class is dismissed. Yeah?